Hello, world. Thank you for tuning in to this evening's broadcast of Going Global with David Delgado. I'd like to welcome to my listeners from around the globe to this evening's program, coming to you live on voiceatradio.com, broadcasting from studios in Midtown Cleveland, Ohio. This program airs Mondays from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Each week we present and discuss topics that touch on geopolitical, cultural, economic, human rights, and more, and how they may affect you, our global listeners. 2, we enhance discussions with featured guests who are experts in their field. We discuss by way of reference any and all nationalities, ethnicities, and races, from Americans to Russians, Koreans, Israelis, Palestinians, and others, blacks, whites, and others alike. We also touch on religions, including Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Islam, and others. But as I've said many times on this program, these discussions will always be constructive and informative and will never be intentionally or maliciously demeaning or degrading to any single race, religion, or nationality. We're in the business of informing, enlightening, and stimulating thought for constructive action and constructive dialogue, and not in the business of theatrics-based insults. And so, as I used to tell my students, if it seems that we haven't gotten around to talking about you, your nationality, religion, or affiliation, don't be offended or complain. Give us time. We'll get around to you, but in a fair and impartial manner. Well, for the past few months, we've had a series of programs examining the political and humanitarian crisis between Russia, Ukraine, and the West. Could it have been prevented, and is there a peaceful solution? We've had as our guest Dr. Thomas Fedizin, former NATO strategist and professor emeritus at the U.S. Naval War College, Dr. Andrei Kortunov, Director General of the Moscow-based Russian International Affairs Council of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Dr. Peter Pry, formerly with the Congressional Commission on EMP, Claire Lopez, former senior operations officer with the CIA, and several others. Recently, we've also been turned down by several Russian-based guests, fearful of being named foreign agents by the person occupying the Kremlin, possibly risking years of imprisonment, if not worse. Well, tonight, in a continuation of these discussions, we're taking a bit of a different tack. We're hosting Ms. Jonne Santoli, General Manager of Kansas City, Missouri-based KCXL 1140 AM radio station. Ms. Santoli's radio station hosts 6 hours of daily broadcasts of what is known as Radio Sputnik, a radio programming entity funded and directed by the Russian government. And so the topic this evening is in view of the horrendous invasion of Ukraine by Russia, but we're going to find out what Radio Sputnik has to say. And does American media have a responsibility to not report information that is controlled and released by a foreign-owned and currently hostile government such as Russia, or should the First Amendment of freedom of speech be allowed to prevail in these circumstances? Well, you too can join the conversation on Voice It Radio's Facebook page, or email your questions to goingglobal@gmail.com. That's goingglobalvoice, I should say, at gmail.com, goingglobalvoice@gmail.com. You can also tweet me at global_Delgado, global_Delgado. Let me set the stage for tonight's discussion. As we've discussed on this program several times in the past, and I'll say it again here tonight, Russia brutally invaded the sovereign country of Ukraine on February 24th by announcing a special military operation to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine and protect Russian Jews living in Ukraine. He launched an all-out invasion of the country, ruthlessly attacking major cities, occupying or reducing major infrastructure to rubble, and even resorting to attacking civilian targets, including hospitals, apartment complexes, theaters, railway stations, teeming with civilians seeking nothing but the shelter or a means of escape, and other civilian infrastructure. Thousands of Ukrainian citizens have perished at the indiscriminate violence perpetrated on them by the Russians. Reports are coming in of Russian troops not only killing civilians on the streets, but also looting stores and private homes in occupied areas. As I've said in the past, this is very reminiscent of Russian troops' behavior in World War II when they entered Germany and other occupied areas that became the Soviet bloc countries. A mentality, a brutality that transcends decades, if not centuries, of Russia, of Russia of the past, and apparently of the present. Then, too, Putin has threatened a nuclear war, saying he would attack any country interfering with Russia with, quote, devastation they have never seen before, including attacking any country seeking to enforce a no-fly zone over Ukraine. Two, Russia has clamped down on internal dissent, criminalizing any perceived criticism of Russian foreign policy, specifically the war in Ukraine, criminalizing reporting of news not favorable to Russia, the so-called fake news. Moscow-based academic friends of mine, members of the Moscow, intelligentsia, have politely declined to appear on this program, as I've cited earlier, citing personal security concerns and fears that they may be labeled as foreign agents, thereby facing decades of imprisonment or worse for merely appearing on a radio program critical of Moscow. And yet, Russia has embarked on a campaign of its own, spreading a false narrative to its citizens regarding the reasons for the war and current status, all the while denying the savagery it is visiting on innocent civilians in Ukraine. This has been shared with me not only by the media at large, but the same Moscow-based academic friends whom I just mentioned, who have privately informed me that the narrative Russia is spreading among its populace among the current conflict is inconsistent with what they know is happening on the ground. Just today, during the celebration of Russia's Victory Day, Putin lauded Russia for its victory against the Nazis during World War II, but compared that same struggle to alleged Nazism and anti-Semitism in Ukraine, once again conveniently forgetting that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky himself is Jewish. January of 2020, Kansas City, Missouri-based KCXL 1140 AM, of which tonight's guest is the general manager, began airing Radio Sputnik, programming 6 hours a day during the morning and afternoon rush hour drives. Radio Sputnik itself was launched in 2014 by media organization Rossiya Segodnya, which is itself funded by and through Russian TV, and that's RT-TV, owned and operated by the Russian government, and was created in 2013 by an executive order signed by the president of Russia himself. According to Radio Sputnik's editor-in-chief at the time, Dmitry Kiselyov, Sputnik was intended to reach a worldwide audience, and I quote, tired of aggressive propaganda promoting a unipolar world and who want a different perspective, unquote. The station claims it, quote, tells the untold, unquote. However, Putin, while visiting the Moscow base of Russian TV television network in 2013, said the objective behind the then forthcoming Sputnik agency and RT was to, quote, break the monopoly of the Anglo-Saxon global information streams, unquote. Well, in the wake of the Russian invasion of Ukraine this past February, the airing of Sputnik content on KCXL and other U.S. radio stations, I should add, has come under fire, with the National Association of Broadcasters and other critics calling on stations to cease airing such programming. However, in a recent interview this past March, tonight's guest, Jonne Santoli, stated that even though she disapproves of the invasion of Ukraine, KCXL has no plans to discontinue its broadcast of Sputnik output, stating, if we can't, and I quote, if we can't express our viewpoints anymore, and we have cancel culture and people deleting and people putting pressure on other people to not hear certain programming, then we're in trouble and freedom no longer exists, unquote. Essentially, what our guest is echoing is the First Amendment of the Constitution, which reads, quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. The Constitution doesn't say, provided we agree, provided press and speech are favorable to the United States. It states in part, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, a very fundamental right that we as a free country enjoy. But contrary to what is happening in Russia at the moment, where academics, journalists, dissidents, and others are being intimidated and threatened with severe punishment if they openly disagree with the Russian narrative, have hostile governments weaponized the First Amendment, and is it now being used as a weapon against us? And this is the crux of this evening's program. Let's continue our discussion on these and related matters with tonight's guest. Once again, you too can join the conversation on Voice It Radio's Facebook page. You can also call 216-772-0500 or email your questions to goingglobalvoice@gmail.com. You can also tweet me at global_Delgado. That's global_Delgado. Johnny, welcome to the program, Going Global with David Delgado.
Hey, thank you so much. It went from really cool to now really hot in Kansas City, and but I'm very thankful, as I sure I'm everybody else is also, that I don't think, I mean, with fake news and everything happening and misinformation, but I do not think there was a nuclear weapon that hit Ukraine. I sure hope not today. I don't know if we're going to, when we would find out if it did or not, but I think there was a lot of news articles that I was reading about this weekend really worrying that he was going to announce war and exactly what that would mean. Because I don't know what this special operation, I don't even know what that means, but I just feel that there's so much information now with computers and being able to just click. You know, when I was growing up, you had ABC, CBS, NBC, and you pretty much got the same thing. Now there's so much, like, almost counterintelligence, counterinformation. You hear one thing, no, it's this. No, you should go here. No, you should get the shot. No, you shouldn't get the shot. No,
Yeah.
Johnson & Johnson don't. It's crazy on the information, but if we are going to be able to look at it and start thinking for ourselves instead of just being spoon-fed, okay, this is what ABC says, this is what you have to believe. No, I don't. I mean, I learned with the Trump, when Trump got elected, I was shocked. I think he was shocked. I stayed up and, you know, he was emotional and crying. I think he was shocked. I was certainly shocked because Hillary Clinton had all the money, all the support, everything. And I still am shocked.
Well, I think you're
so
absolutely.
Shocked. I am so shocked.
I
that
think you're.
Russia.
I'm sorry. Go
that
ahead.
Russia is in Ukraine. That Russia is in Ukraine in the year 2022. Now, we started doing programming in 2020, and I couldn't even figure out why Russia wanted to do programming. But in 2020, I thought it was interesting.
Well, tell us about that.
COVID.
Let me ask you this.
Okay, let me go back to that, because the show is, I don't even think people know across the country that the show is produced by Americans in Washington, D.C.
That's what I was going to ask you.
All the Americans I know in journalism, they're going to say whatever they want because they are not afraid. Now, they may be, okay, like ABC is controlled by Pfizer, so they may say, well, we can't say anything against immunizations because Pfizer is paying for all the airtime. But I think with the typical person in journalism that really wants to go for the truth, they're not afraid of going to jail. They might be afraid that, okay, don't say that because da-da-da, and we're being sponsored. We're going to lose a sponsor. And now with cancel culture, if you say anything that sounds racist, I mean, look at the show The Talk. Now, if you're older and you remember Ozzy Osbourne, and so his wife made a big comeback for being older and female, big comeback, and then she says one thing, and all of a sudden she's this because she agreed with a journalist who was doing a reported investigation, and all she said was and all of a sudden everyone's going crazy, and she loses her income, but she doesn't go to jail. What I'm saying is the difference with Russia is, if I listen to your monologue, if they can't talk to you because they're not even worried about losing their income, they're worried about going to jail.
They're afraid of going to jail. They're afraid of even
growing up.
They're afraid of even worse than that. They're afraid of not only going to jail. They're afraid of being killed. I mean, that's the bottom
or
line.
hurt. It may not even being killed, being tortured. And now that's what I grew up. So if that's the truth, then that's the truth. Like, if you're pregnant and you're having a baby, then you either are, it's 100% you are, or 100% you're not. There's no middle ground. You're either pregnant or you're not. And so with the Supreme Court justice, people going to Kavanaugh's home, which is wrong, if we're not allowed to stand up for life and truth and have a difference of opinion and argue, then we're in trouble.
No, I don't disagree with that. But tell us about your station. How did you get involved with Radio Sputnik? And yes,
All
I
right.
want to find out where the programming is.
All right. So we knew that they were doing Radio Sputnik in Washington, D.C. And I'm always interested in different programming. And as an independent radio station, we're always trying to pay the bills. I mean, we compete with giants and ABC and Pfizer. And so when you're independently owned, you have to do everything you can think of, do local sports and do local sales. And then you're always bombarded with, oh, well, talk to our agency. And so they hang up on you. It's sales. It's tough. So when I was able to break through, and I'm interested in different things. I'm interested in Russia. Before this happened, the weekend programming, it clicked with me. I was like, oh my gosh, I know why they're paying for programming. They're like everybody else. It's a new day, and they want people to spend their money and visit Russia. And I was like, good for them. It's a new world. It's a new day in the year 2020. Because their weekend programming is all like, oh, this is where you can go and eat in Russia. What do you think of Russia? Oh, I like it. And so it was propaganda, but it was positive propaganda. It was visit Russia, eat the food, enjoy the culture, and I enjoyed the weekend programming. I did not enjoy the weekday programming because I'm very conservative and I thought it was very liberal, and I don't like liberal programming. Mm-hmm. Having said that, there's a lot of programs that I don't like. But am I going to shut them off and shut them down? No. I'm going to express my conservative, pro-life, pro-God opinion. But I'm also going to let someone say, you know what? I don't believe in God, and I don't believe in this, and I don't believe in this. Because isn't that what we're here to do in radio and in TV and in journalism? Or no, we have to agree. Or, you're going to lose this sponsor. We did have somebody come up to the station. This is years ago when I went against a city thing, and they wanted to see all the sponsors because they wanted to call every single sponsor to get us shut down completely. It did not happen, but we were very much worried, and you either are going to go for the truth or you're not. And we don't make a lot of money. And so I don't have a big sponsor over my head saying, well, Pfizer sponsors your show. You want to lose that? And I would say yes, because I don't want to get an immunization. And I still don't. Because COVID is in the cold family. So if you don't want to get an immunization in America, you should be able to say, no, thank you. It's between me and my doctor, and not be harassed.
Yeah, let's get back to.
And if I want to do Sputnik, then I should be able to do Sputnik, and people can call in and get upset with me, but I shouldn't be threatened.
I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that too.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that too, and how you're being threatened.
And you know what I hate about that?
But hang on a second.
Hang on
a second. So I don't disagree with what you're saying. I don't disagree with your point. I think we've discussed this a couple of times off radio. Certainly agree with that point in terms of the First Amendment, and yes, you should be able to broadcast as you choose. But honestly, that does raise questions that should lead to constructive dialogue. We should have a constructive dialogue on it. That does not result in, and people should be able to do this. Does not result in you being threatened at all. Period. End of story. And unfortunately, that's what's happening. And I do want to talk about that here in a couple of minutes. But I think you covered some of the questions that I had, and that was how were you approached.
You know what? I just want to say this: once you're threatened, the conversation's over.
Yes, I get that.
Now someone's using force against you.
Yes.
And that's never right. Okay, go ahead.
But tell us, for our listeners to understand, the Sputnik Radio broadcasting format on your station. You mentioned that the programming is developed in D.C. How is it developed? Who develops it? And how do you receive that content? Are your broadcasters in D.C.?
So when they started Sputnik, I don't know what year it started, which I am actually trying to figure out. Why was Russian television stopped and Sputnik wasn't? Is it a different group? Because I actually, when this started, I was thinking, okay, that's it. They're not going to be doing programming anymore. And I believe that RT is still off the air. Someone let me know. They said, RT is no longer on cable. I don't know if the cable company decided on that or if Russian TV. Do you know? I don't know the answer to that because I'm in radio.
Yeah.
But
go ahead.
Do you know?
Go ahead. No, I do know that.
So, but going on with Sputnik, I thought right after they invaded, and I'm going to call it what, to me, the truth is they invaded. You don't say it's a special assignment. You went into a country and you started destroying.
Correct.
That's an invasion. Okay.
Correct.
Getting back to it.
Help me out.
Why? I'm surprised that Sputnik, I'm surprised it didn't stop at the D.C. level. And I'm still trying to figure that out. I don't know anyone personally because, everything's now satellite, So the shows that we get on KCXL, we get a Catholic show, right? But we're just picking it up off the internet and satellite like a lot of radio stations now. It used to be you had to have someone in the studio. Now those rules are changing because you can pick up anything now.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. And again, let's get back to your particular station very quickly and your host, your show host. Are they based? Your show hosts, are they based in Kansas City? Do they come in studio, or are they all satellite based out of D.C.?
No, they're all out of D.C.
Okay. Now, are they? Tell us about their nationality. Are they Americans? Are they Russians? Tell us a little bit about them.
Wait a minute. You're doing this interview, and you've never listened to Sputnik Radio in the morning or in the evening. You've never listened to it?
You know what? I have listened to some of Sputnik Radio, but I'm curious as to their nationality. You never know, who's whether they're American, they're Russian.
You know what? I believe that they're all like me. I mean, my grandparents were Polish, so does that make me Polish? I was born in America. I feel like it's a variety. I could be wrong. I don't think any of them are Russian. I really don't. I mean, they might have grandparents that came from Russia, but then someone could say, well, you're Polish. Well, yeah, my grandfather came over. So, I mean, I think they're younger, and I think they are born in America, and I think they're very liberal. That's how I would classify them.
So basically, your station is a conduit then for this this programming. It's a conduit. You neither support nor do you negate their contract or their information. Rather, you're simply a conduit that they're using to reach your listening audience in Kansas City, regionally, wherever it may be.
Right, and I don't like some of the things they have said. Actually, the one interview that they did with that general. And I had to turn off the radio because this general was saying they should have gone in, Russia should have gone in and really, and I was like, this is an American general? How dare he say what he just said? And what? Russia should have gone in and destroyed more people than they would have because then it would have been over quicker? That really is horrible. But I'll tell you what. There are people that think that.
Well, and I'm not familiar.
We as Americans need to know.
I'm not familiar with the general that you're referring to or the incident you're referring to, but
you know what? I actually had to turn it off. So I was so upset, and I really am so upset with Russia doing this. Russia was doing, in my opinion, doing well. And not only that, it could have been, and they're doing programming in America. It could have been such an opportunity for them to continue doing good things, having people travel to Russia, not be afraid, and enjoy visiting Russia and then making money. You know, that's the bottom line. They could have financially, how many companies that I've learned since this has started said we don't want to be in Russia anymore? I mean, did they have McDonald's and Starbucks and I can't remember all the companies that said, "Hey, we're out of here."
Well,
But
and
they
there have
could
been
have
there
gone-
have been there have
Go
been
ahead.
many companies that have said we're out of here, out of Russia, and certainly McDonald's has been one of them as well. And I've been to Russia many times myself. Well, I should say several times. I've been to Moscow, been to St. Petersburg, but needless to say,
Did you
I'm
feel
never
it
going
was?
again.
I've never been. Did you feel it was going in a positive, more free direction?
Yes, and we've had a number of different discussions on what happened and why it went the other way, and so forth. But yes,
No,
I
you know
felt
what
when
I
I was
think?
there.
I
Yes,
think I'll tell you what. The one woman who retired from RT, Russian television, I think she summed it up perfectly. She said, "I'm leaving my position so I can speak freely. I want you to know Russians love their children too," which I got her point on that. Please don't hurt us, because they're worried about their safety. But her second point, she goes, "They're talking about Nazis." And she goes, "You realize that was 80 years ago. But his whole narrative, even today, I got to hear about Nazis." All I can say is, I want to know from you, because you've been to Russia, could you please explain this to me? Did Russia lose 26 million Russians? I mean, I heard in school 6 million Jews died. That was drilled into me since, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade. I never heard that 23 million Russians died. Now, was Russia in Nazi Germany? Did 23, is that an accurate number in your opinion?
you know,
Did 23 million Russians died? Do you believe that or no? Because I don't know anymore.
In my opinion, and there have been a number of different numbers thrown about as to how many Russians
Right.
died, million Russians died, and how many millions of Germans died. We do know documented an estimated 6.5 million Jews died in the Holocaust. But yes, suffice it to
We
say,
know that
obviously,
number.
suffice
We've
it to
got
say,
that number
suffice it to say that World War II was a costly endeavor for everybody. And we've also discussed on this program how the Russians learned a lesson, and that is sign an agreement, cheat on the agreement, and then develop new technologies to ultimately invade the person you signed an agreement with. We've talked about that a number of times in the past.
Okay,
so
but
I think
I want to get right back to it because it's such an important point. If he's going to use Nazi again and again and again, and Zelensky trying to fight that Nazi thing, and I'm saying, why are we talking about Nazis? If he feels that's an effective communication tool with his people, he's going to use it. Just like I'm going to use an effective tool, just like Zelensky. It's human nature. What I want to ask you, because you've visited Russia, are they still mentally at the point where the Nazi dialogue really does put the fear of God in them? I don't know.
No,
I
can tell you this, and again, this is purely made up bunk. This is in Putin's mind. It is purely made up bunk, and this is not only me speaking, but this is the various experts with whom I've spoken. It is nothing but purely made up bunk.
Okay, I just want to know if you
hang on a second. His whole intention was to invade Ukraine, because he felt Ukraine was getting too close to NATO and too close to the European Union, and Ukraine is on his border. He does not want NATO. He does not want the European Union on his border. Now, the contra to that.
Too bad. You know what? And you know what I say to that? Too bad. And I'm going to put it real simply. If I want to go to the prom, it's May. People are going to the prom. I just saw kids, which is so wonderful. Okay, I want to go to the prom. and the director says, a girl across the street doesn't like me. She's my neighbor. And she says, you don't get to go. I said, what do you mean I don't get to go? Who are you? If you go, in fact, I'm going to come over there and I'm going to hurt you so you can't. Hey, you know what? You're not in charge of the prom. I'll talk to the director of the prom. Putin is not in charge of NATO. Putin is not in charge. I want to go to the prom, and I want to be. And not only that, Ukraine was correct. No wonder Ukraine wants to be part of NATO. I sure would want to be.
Well, see, and that's the point. And that is
with a girl across the street who could hurt me, who's a lot bigger than me. She weighs 400 pounds, and I weigh 100, and I'm cute. And I want to go to the prom. I should be able to talk to the director. Do you get my point?
All right, we're going to be taking a quick break, but the point that you're making is exactly the point that others have made as well, and that is those nation states that surround Russia are fearful of Russia. If they were not fearful of Russia, they would not be interested in joining NATO and in joining the European Union. If they were not, those that are suggesting a peaceful resolution suggest that Ukraine should not be allowed to join NATO, should not be allowed to join EU. However, there should be a treaty of non-aggression, mutual respect amongst all of the member nation states, the former member nation states of the Soviet Union and Russia, hang on a second, and Russia, so as they would not necessarily be inclined to join NATO. The reason they want to join NATO, and many of them did and were allowed to join NATO, is they feared Russia. They feared the aggression that NATO is, rather that Ukraine is now feeling. So we're going to be taking a break.
And boy, they were right. They were right.
Well, you're absolutely right, and I kind of find it interesting that yes, you are criticizing Russia, and my point here is I don't think you should go to Russia, but yes, you are broadcasting, you are supporting Sputnik Radio, and it is your right, your First Amendment right, and I totally agree with that. Anyway, we're going to come back. We're talking to Jonne Santoli. Johnny, I know it's difficult when I look at it in print. Jonne Santoli, General Manager, Kansas City, Missouri-based KCXL 1140 AM radio station, and we're discussing Radio Sputnik and the programming therein versus the First Amendment. We'll be right back. We'll be right back after the short break. You too can join the conversation with questions by viewing the Voice It Radio Facebook page. Also, email me at goingglobalvoice@gmail.com. Tonight's program is brought to you by Margaret Wong and Associates, Cleveland-based award-winning immigration attorneys, helping individuals and companies on immigration issues in the United States and others. You can reach them at imwong.com. That's imwong.com. Stay with us. We'll be right back after the short break. If you need an immigration attorney, there's one name you need to know: Margaret Wong and Associates. Visit them at imwong.com. That's imwong.com, or give them a call at 216-566-9908. 216-566-9908. Margaret Wong and Associates, award-winning immigration attorneys.
This is Al Porter Jr., the president of Black on Black Crime Incorporated. Fentanyl is the leading cause of drug overdose deaths in Cuyahoga County. It is now found in powdered cocaine, crack cocaine, meth, and heroin. Any drug may contain fentanyl. If you use drugs, never use alone, and carry Narcan in case of overdose. Call the Adams Board 24-hour addiction and mental health crisis hotline at 216-623-6888 if you're ready for help. That's 216-623-6888. Share this message and save lives. This message brought to you by the Adams Board of Cuyahoga County.
Hi, I'm David Delgado. Tune in to Going Global with David Delgado every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Brought to you by Margaret Wong and Associates, leaders in immigration law based in Cleveland, Ohio, right here on voiceitradio.com.
Hi, I'm Lillian Piles.
And I'm Harry Boomer.
Join us every Thursday from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will be covering all aspects of theater, film, and the performing arts right here from Northeast Ohio.
We will also tell you about what national major productions are coming to town. Don't miss Backstage with Lillian Piles and Harry Boomer every Thursday from 7 to 8 p.m. right here on voiceitradio.com.
This is Chanel McLeod, and I'm always tuned in to Voice It Radio.
Join yours truly, Harvey Zay, each and every Tuesday night for Jazz in the Heights. The jam sessions kick off at 7 p.m. and we groove until 11 p.m. It's live jazz and great vibes at the Front Stage Multiplex located at 3492 Mayfield Road at Severance Town Center. Also enjoy great drinks and delicious food. It's Jazz in the Heights Tuesdays from 7 p.m. until 11 p.m.
Laura Cowan of Laura Cowan's Empowerment Hour on VoiceItRadio.com.
What's going on? This is your brother Bashir Jones, and you are tuned in to VoiceItRadio.com.
Hello, this is Zulma Zabala, President CEO for East End Neighborhood House, and I host your weekly East End Neighborhood wrap-up show here on Voice It Radio from 2 to 3 p.m. every Friday. Tune in.
Welcome back to Going Global with David Delgado. We have as our guest this evening Jonne Santoli, General Manager of Kansas City, Missouri-based KCXL 1140 AM radio station. And we're discussing Radio Sputnik, Russian-owned Radio Sputnik, really just comparing their airings to First Amendment freedom of speech. Should we be allowed to invoke freedom of speech, the First Amendment in this case, where clearly Radio Sputnik is Russian-owned. Russia is a currently classified hostile government to the United States, and they're broadcasting in the United States. Should that be allowed or should that not be allowed? I welcome your questions. And Johnny, I do have some questions that I want to get to very quickly. One of them says, do you offer disclaimer?
If people want to make their own decision, they can go to KCXL.com, and then there's a phone number that, because the show airs 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. in the morning, Central Time, and then 6 to 9 p.m., and then you can say, I agree with them on this, and I disagree with them on this. I think this is correct. I think we got to learn now how to think.
And that's very good. And I'm going to give you an opportunity. I'm going to give you an opportunity to discuss that toward the end of the program, and also how programs can or those desiring to appear on your station can appear on your station. But anyway, here's a question that's been emailed in. Do you offer disclaimers of any sort during your airings?
Yes, we have to. At the beginning of the show, we have to say. See, the FCC and the government got involved with all this also, and it has to say that this show is, and then the whole thing. So it is very clear that, they go through the whole thing. So a disclaimer and the whole origin and everything about it is at the beginning. And, they have to because, you really do want to be clear on what is this. I think the word Sputnik makes it kind of clear. It's not like they're trying to hide, but we want to make sure that even though it's people in Washington D.C. that are the hosts of the show is. But I'm going to tell you what. I really believe that those people, you could call them, and everyone's free to call people like I can, not just people in radio. You could call where it originates in Washington, D.C., and ask them. They also let people call in during the show. Americans call in and yell at them. I wouldn't yell, but, express like, why are you talking like this? And express your viewpoints. What's interesting is there was a very intelligent gentleman that called in, an American, and he was saying, I don't know why we're doing this and why we're doing this, but as far as Russia, this and this, he was so intelligent. I was like, you should actually be hosting the show because and they're like, yep, you're correct. There are so many Americans that know so much more than I do about Russia, and why Russia this and this, and I can't keep up. But I'll tell you what I do know. What they're doing is wrong, and that's it.
Well, that is the bottom line.
Yeah,
What they're doing.
I liked it in 2020. Oh, and when I started it in 2020, the very liberal people that hate Russia, Hillary Clinton supporters, called in and threatened us in 2020. Now, this was no war. This was nothing.
Let me get to that. Let me get to that in just a second, because that is an important point, and I want to talk about that. But here's another question.
On the calls, they were from all over the country.
Here's another question.
Nothing in Kansas City.
Here's another question that's.
All over the country.
Hang on a second. Here's another question that's been emailed in, and here's the question: do you feel that the Russians would allow a U.S. station similar to Sputnik Radio broadcast to broadcast U.S. propaganda or U.S. information in Russia, actually based in Russia?
I've asked that, and actually, I guess we do. I found out, this is very interesting. I found out that we pay to have things spoken about America in a lot of different countries, which I find fascinating. I never knew that. But because I asked that, I said, you think da-da-da-da-da, we could do da-da-da? We do. Did you know that we do? I was like, no, I didn't know that. They said, come on. You don't think with all the money and everything that we have different programs in different countries to promote America and American tourism and America? Come on now.
Well, we do have obviously.
I don't know all the specifics. I do not know all the specifics. So that would take research.
Well, we do have Voice of America, obviously, that does pinpoint and target Voice of America broadcasts into the various countries. But the question is there one in Russia? And that question was, do you know or do you think Russia would allow a U.S.-owned, Russian-based radio station to broadcast U.S. information? And the answer to that, obviously, is likely not. Certainly not one that I know of, and I don't know.
Not that I know of.
Yeah, I don't know of one either. I don't think that's ever happened. So back to here's one more.
I have a question. Wait a minute. I have a question to follow up on that. All right. Because watching some of the younger generation that are so good with computers, if it's true, I thought I saw a Russian gentleman, young, in his 20s, who said, yeah, they took down Facebook, but we know how to get around that. You've got these young, smart computer kids in Russia that, and everywhere in the world, that can get around because we're older and, and they're so quick on computers because they grew up with them. They can get around it, and they can get to different TikTok and this and this and this that, by the time I've talked on the phone, they've done this, this, and this on the computer, and they already got the information, and they're on to something else.
Johnny, I can tell you this. My Russian academic friends have told me that while Facebook is down, YouTube is not. They have not shut down YouTube, and they don't know why. And this program tonight is going to be on YouTube, and the past programs we've done on Russia are on YouTube. And yet what they told me was they've said, we've enjoyed watching your programs. Would you believe YouTube is still available?
I can't believe that.
Well, that's the reason.
What about you? You're in broadcasting. Can you believe they would shut down Facebook?
I'm shocked.
YouTube?
I am shocked, actually, that YouTube is still allowed, but I'm glad it is.
Oh, wait. Hey, like me, on KCXL.com, I'm not taking any comments because I don't want to hear it, and I'm not part of that cancel culture that you on your intro. I'm sick of cancel culture. They'll cancel all of us, okay?
So I do want to ask you a question.
KCXL.com, we're not on Facebook or anything.
I do want to ask you one question. I do want to ask you one question. I do want to ask you one question, and then I want to get to the threats that you're on
YouTube? Wait a minute. I want to understand this on YouTube because you brought it up. Can you make a comment on YouTube, or is YouTube really just a recording?
No, you can. Well, you can obviously you can comment on what you viewed. So anything that you see on YouTube, you can insert your comments. But yeah, what's recorded on YouTube is recorded on YouTube. But again,
Right.
people click on it. They either like it, they dislike it, and obviously offer certain comments.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you this: does American media, in your opinion, this is my question, does American media have a responsibility to not report as news information that is controlled and released by a foreign-owned and currently hostile government such as Russia?
If we start restricting speech, we're in trouble. Whether they're bad, good, I think what Biden said today is horrible about abortion. Can I restrict him? No.
Yep.
Should I be able to? No. Should Russia be doing what it's doing? No. Should I restrict a Washington, D.C. person from speaking on Sputnik radio? No. But should I disagree with them? 100%.
I think
to disagree in this country. While we still have this country left, we better be able to disagree. And we better be able to choose whatever programming, whether it's from the Soviet Union or now Russia, because you know what we're teaching our kids? We don't like them, and they're doing this, and we are not going to allow them to speak. I want my kids to speak to every single person they can without being threatened. You brought that up at the beginning of the show. That's the key. I should be able to go to the prom, not have a bully, my neighbor, 400 pounds, which I'm referring to as Russia, have a gun pointed to me and say, you don't get to go to the prom. And I'm going to kill you and your family.
I believe what you're saying. I believe what you're saying is that the First Amendment, has no limits. It should not have a limit.
Hey, Jesus got crucified. You want to put a restriction on First Amendment? Jesus, God, freedom of religion. It's a bad road.
I totally agree with you.
No, you got to keep walking.
And
it's hard. Oh, but I'll tell you what, there is a price.
Let me get to this because
it's not free speech. It's speech with a price, and those Ukrainians are suffering, and so are the Russians. I want to make that point. What about these Russian soldiers that are just kids?
Well, I'll let you make that point. Go ahead.
That's horrible. We got these Russian kids going in, 40 miles long. I thought, oh my God, Ukraine's going to be obliterated. This is going to be a short war, but they're going to be decimated. I never thought we were going to see Russians, and if it is true, the Russian soldiers, them getting out of their tanks, we don't even know where we are. I believe some of that is true.
Well, I believe some of that is true as well, but I venture to say that probably none of that was broadcast on Sputnik radio. But let me ask you this: as a broadcaster,
you don't know. No. Okay, you know what? Can you tell an American to be quiet in journalism? I haven't met one.
All right. Well, let me say this: that as a broadcaster, and what I'm getting from you is you certainly believe in the First Amendment. Here's what I believe in as well: not only the First Amendment, but I also believe.
Okay.
I also believe what Evelyn Hall had to say in her 1906 publication of The Friends of Voltaire. And what she said is, I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. I, too, agree with that. I, too, agree with that. I may disagree and disapprove of what you say, but I will fight to the death your right to say it.
But isn't it wonderful that we get to talk?
Yes, it is.
You know what I mean? And that's why I'm still in talk radio. It's certainly not. I'm very thankful for what I have.
And unfortunately,
but what a struggle financially,
Unfortunately, our friends in Russia are not so lucky at the moment. They are not so lucky at the moment. Let's turn to the threats we received.
Okay, let me ask you, do you think the average Russian is afraid right now?
That's difficult to say because the average Russian certainly is receiving information and news that is different than what is actually going on. But yes, they're all concerned. Everybody's concerned about safety, love, self-esteem. They're concerned about family, their kids, as you mentioned just a few minutes ago. But it's tough to say now, given the narrative that's going on there. But let's turn back to you and your station. What kinds of threats have you received? From whom? What's happened?
Okay, when we started in 2020, and that was, now you got to think about Hillary Clinton and the Russia whole thing, and Russia this, Russia that. That whole thing happened. Whether you agree or not, it happened, okay? Russia was in the news. Hillary was using it. That's it. We heard it again and again. Okay, So when we started doing no war, there was no war then, okay? 2020, all there was Hillary Clinton saying Russia, Trump, and all that. Then he gets elected, and then how much did we have to hear about Russia being every day in the news? Russia, Russia, Russia. Then they said there wasn't. You know what? I don't know what the truth is on it. I really don't. So much news about it, though. I do know that. I know I was bombarded. So we start doing the programming in 2020, okay? I'm getting calls from all over the country. We were on the front page of the New York Times. Why the New York Times would care about a little station in Kansas City, Missouri, independently owned, it's still beyond me. But we were on the cover. Not because they liked us, because they wanted to use the word propaganda. And I actually think that is the incorrect word. Back in 2020, I think the word should have been Russia promoting itself, because that's what I truly believe is the truth on that. Now, what do I think about Russia? I think Russia is giving misinformation. I think propaganda it's like an old word, like Nazi Germany. We should not be using the word propaganda in the year 2022. That's my opinion. I think we should be saying they are giving their opinion of what's going on in Russia. They want Americans, again, because the weekend programming, they want Americans to come and spend their money. Now, younger people also from Russia want to come and visit America. This is now a newer, better, more open world. And I'm going to tell you what, I think Ukraine now, in February, I thought they were going to be obliterated. Now, I think they have a chance. And here's why.